Hello, hello, awesomers. It's Regina coming to you post-election, but pre-results on AWE Radio from my newly minted ABCD PNRM Talkcast. Shh. Let's talk about getting it together. And the it today is post-election saga. Democracy still in play, or is autocracy on the horizon? Election day is come and gone, and I truly hope we all exercised our right to vote and took a stand on whether saving democracy was important enough. Important enough for us to activate our voices regardless to the side of its fragility and importance we upheld. Results are still not known, so here are three scenarios. First, things remain as they were. The House is still under Democratic control. Second, Senate is knotted at 50, Democratic control with the vice president's vote. And third, election deniers and democracy obstructionists on the right in state, local legislatures and their governmental officials are repudiated. Democracy working, but minimally. Or democracy is saved. First, Dems retain the House. Second, they receive at least 2 additional Senate seats, a total of 52, to ensure continuation of programs passed, guarantee passage of Roe versus Wade, and voting rights legislation is passed to overturn the onerous anti-voting rights bills states passed into law. We want to address partisan and racially biased gerrymandering of congressional districts and ensure the passage of other laws and bills that made it to the congressional floor but were unable to be passed previously. And third, the election deniers and democracies are still at bay. This results in democracy working, saved, and autocracy averted. Or this is either the beginning of the end, democracy lost, or the end of the beginning, the attempt to change our democracy to an autocracy, a fascist country. Democracy is lost and autocracy, fascism, is the way of the land. Think about that. That can only happen if the GOP receives at least 5 additional seats in the House and follows through on the impending Speaker's promise of shutting down the government by not increasing the debt ceiling or passing the budget to keep the government operational, curtailing funds to Ukraine and other U.S. allies, and impeaching President Biden, who knows for what. They'll make it up as they go along. Secondly, if the GOP receives at least 1 more seat in the Senate, they will pass a total 15-week federal abortion ban. It will become the law of the country. Congress will be in total obstructionist or lockdown mode because that's ostensibly what they did the last 2 years. Let's get real. The GOP hasn't put forth an agenda or plan for what they would do if they took over the majority, except continue to block everything. The exception to the previous 2 years is the GOP would be in charge. So they would decide what issues made it to the floor and therefore those that were voted on. President Biden would become a lame duck for the rest of his term because they would not allow anything to make it to the floor and nothing to get passed. This is pretty much what they did or what they said when President Obama was in the White House. It was pretty much, bye boy, I'm not going to let you do anything. You won't get anything passed, so, he too had problems getting things through, but he did make some progress. Third, the election deniers and democracy obstructionists on the right at state and local legislature and government office level are elected and therefore duly empowered to invoke all the insurrectionist violence, dirty tricks desired, pack election boards and polling operations with election deniers designed to control local voting, initiate unsubstantiated litigations, and substitute partisan electoral votes in lieu of the will of the people to control election outcomes, and use mis or disinformation tactics escalated post-2020 election, January 6th, and more recently, to sow distrust and fear of federal policies and actions to susceptible Americans. They're able to do legally or more freely that they tried illegally January 6th. Democracy is fragile, not what it once was, and autocracy is impending in this scenario. Now, regardless to where we sit or stand on these scenarios, which one comes into play, we are on a path to figuring out how to get back to democracy as we knew it and survive in the wake of the chaos that now stands in its place. Democracy was absolutely the system of government for the country until 2015-2020 period of the 45th president's tenure for all parties, but has strayed away from its purest meaning for some and totally disappeared from the vernacular of others. When you really think about our course of action in each previously stated outcome scenario, they are all kind of the same, regardless of which one we find ourselves in, because one, once the dust settles, restored democracy, as we know or envision it to be, is the goal. Think about that. The differences in our path and the way we proceed is determined by the depth in which democracy has been impaired by the midterms and what is required to repair, restore, or reshape it to be what it can be in light of today's democratic soft pedal approach to governing and countering attacks from the right. I get a lot of polls, I get a lot of requests for donations, and this is my opinion. Democracy defenders must meet the deniers where they are. Fight fire with fire, and that's not physical, that's mental. Let's meet them where they are, but make things happen. Speak truth to power and call out democracy opposers, own their wins and tout their successes. Lead with dignity and honest dialogue in what is possible and how to make it happen. What is needed and what happens if it doesn't happen or they don't get it. Hold the country responsible to do their part or accept consequences of non-action. Be on the offense rather than always on defense. Don't be so reactive to what the MAGAs do. Don't give or let them take their power. I mean, I could go on and on, but you've got the gist of it. So where are we post-election? With the Senate, the GOP has won 49 of the 100 seats, the Dems 46, and two other who normally will vote with the Dems. So it's 49-48 right now. There are 3 seats that have not yet been called, and they're all Democratic seats. The states that are involved are Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia. Georgia is a very contentious state or race, and we're going up to a runoff on December 6th. So the results of that will determine something, but there are a couple of ways that will impact what happens in the Senate and where control will go. The fate of the Senate control hangs in the balance of the three races in Democratic held states. And I just told you which ones those are. If we take both of those seats that are not in runoffs, then it is already determined. We are in control of the Senate. The results of Georgia then is either gravy on it for us, or it would bring the Republicans up, but we would still be in control of the Senate. If the Dems successfully retain them both, but if we get them both and get Georgia, then we would have 51 seats, which is very, very good. If the Republicans, the GOP, flip both of them and they then have 51, then they have control of the House. They'll have 51 and they'll take control with a possible 52 seat majority in December if Georgia, they would be able to turn that one too. So Georgia is important, but what is going on with Nevada and Arizona are as important because it could happen much sooner. The House, right now, or at the time of this information gathering, the House on the Republican side had 199 seats committed of those that were under review for the election. The Dems had 174. It was being projected with a plus or minus margin of error that the Republicans would take over the House and end up with 220, that's a plus or minus 10, to 215. Those numbers fluctuated a little, and I saw some change in numbers, but not early enough to be able to impact on the numbers that I'm telling you. But what I did find out is that the prognosticators on what will happen with those numbers say that there still exists a path through which the Dems could take control, because that plus or minus means the 220 could go down or it could go up. The 215 could go down or could go up. So there's a way, if we retain all of the seats that the Dems currently have incumbents in, and we take those that are open for the Republicans, we could still retain control over the House. The governorships, those were very, very, well, pretty much not eventful in the sense that there were 36 at stake, 16 went Democratic, 16 went Republican, and there are 4 undecided. Those 4 I don't have any information on. But a good news story is that the governor's races in Michigan, they were able to retain that seat. In fact, they not only retained that seat, they did a trifecta in the sense that they kept the governorship, they took the Secretary of State, the Attorney General's position, and they also flipped the legislature, both houses blue, and that hadn't happened in several decades. So that was a good news story. It was a good news story in Michigan, and there were other good news stories across the country. Okay, probably enough for today. Probably, those numbers are, kind of over a macro view of what happened. Next show, I'll take a deep dive into where it all landed. And I should have had an opportunity to see how the results are projected to impact the way we're able to do business in the country, change it, or fortify it. Given time, I'll lay out how we start the journey toward the 2024 presidential election. 2 years is not as long as we think, and we need to start preparing for it today. This is Regina Adams saying, see you at the end of the week to give you something to share and take into the rest of many weeks. Take care and keep getting it together.
Regina Adams, who is COO of Cocoa Women and Youth Empowerment Program. In the spirit of information and empowerment, she's going to be doing a series
Right.
on the importance of using your voice
Right.
in the voting process and staying
Right.
informed of issues that impact our country here in the United
Right.
States.
It's,
I'm excited about
it's you
that.
getting involved in your country and in what
Yes.
goes on in your community
Yes,
where it grows
absolutely.
into national stuff.
Oh yeah,
It
it's
starts right where
starts
you
locally.
are. Right.
Absolutely. So that's going to be on Fridays. So stay tuned for that as well. And then of course we always have music from the AWE biopic. We love that. And then folks, surprise, surprise, let me just say AWE Radio has a new home. You have been connecting with AWE Radio through a womanivolvesnetwork.com, but now we have a new home. It is AWE Media Co. That's AWEMediaco.com. You no longer have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to find the station anymore. It's going to be right there front and center. In addition to that, we'll have streaming so you can see the videos, some of the behind the scenes from AWE Radio, some of the videos from some of the programs that you've seen on AWE Radio, and music and merchandise and
some of my old music. Some stuff from way back.
Oh
right?
my goodness, it's going to be a
up.
lot of fun. And then we're going to be sharing stories about the programming, how these programs came to be, and that's going to be through our blog titled Enjoy the Journey. All of that's on AWE Radio. You guys know I like for you to hear it first, but you will be hearing more about that at the next edition of AWE News that is coming out tomorrow. Oh yes, we have. Thank you, Mom. We have another series, Gratitude, Merck Resources Gratitude Series on Thursdays. It is amazing. And let me just say, Merck Resource is graciously allowing folks to get a copy of the new gratitude journal that Merck Resource recently put out. And you can get that going to CORES, as in Sam, cotton.com. I love that series. Thank you, Eleanor Murky and Merck Resources. So much going on. So very much going on, and we remain excited. Now, stay tuned because, many of you know that Mom and I wrote a book in 2013, I think it was, Mom, called A 360-Degree Perspective, a mother-daughter journey of come here meets been there. So we're going to bring what we call a book talk to AWE Radio. And guess what, folks? We are going to be streaming it. And hey, EW fam from Facebook, we're going to be streaming it in the EW Facebook group.
Okay.
So stay tuned. We got lots going on. We're not going to hold you too long. And we're going to let our co-host, Dr. C, return to her rest and rejuvenation. But we just wanted to stop in and say hey and let you know what's going, right, Mom?
Hey.
Yeah. So anything to say? Well, I always like to say, be empowered. And I love it when you say,
be you.
Be you. It's your girl, Corrie, here, and your
Dr.
co-host,
Cotton.
Dr. Cotton, on AWE Radio, folks, where we're unapologetically empowered and always on with information and inspiration for your transformation. Until next time, again, be empowered. As Mom says, be you. And always enjoy the journey. Till next time.